It all starts with a game called Prison Day, created by a dark cosmic god just to pass the time. In this game, humans are randomly chosen to face tough dungeons, but those who complete the challenge receive powerful cards. On the other hand, losers pay the ultimate price, remaining trapped in this nightmare game for eternity. Because of this, many believed they could defeat the boss, get an S rank card, and become a winner, but at the end of the day, the only one who managed to survive this cruel game was our protagonist. He used to think that getting stronger would get him everything he wanted, but now he understands that the end of the game is becoming one of these gods. Knowing this truth, he decides to refuse the offer, giving up on becoming a member of this group of evil deities. An entity then tries to convince him, saying that by joining them, he would gain eternal life and supreme power to rule the entire universe, and it asks if he's sure he wants to throw away this one-of-a-kind divine status he worked so hard to achieve. Without hesitation, our protagonist confirms his choice, because although he made the most rational decisions to win, he ended up losing his mom, his friends, and his girlfriend. We then see flashes of the protagonist's memories, showing that everyone important to him was lost in this game. The dark god then asks the protagonist what his next wish is, and the young man's only wish was to have a peaceful, normal life with the people he loved by his side. With that, he remembers his girlfriend asking him out on a weekend date. Fueled by this memory, the protagonist screams that the entity destroyed everything, and now he will erase this world and its painful history. Suddenly, a golden card begins to materialize in the protagonist's hand, and he warns the god to stop with the threats, as this card contains a power the entity can't control. Tokiya then reveals his time reversal card, which can erase everyone's memories and allow him to redo his life. Seeing this, the entity is stunned, unable to believe the young man managed to obtain such a card. The being remarks that this is interesting and hopes to meet him again before disappearing. After that, the golden card's time reversal effect is activated, and Tokiya swears he'll come back prepared and won't let anything precious be taken from him again. Suddenly, he wakes up with a jolt, showing that the card's effect had worked. He was in a hospital bed, completely disoriented and with no idea where he is. Looking around with a bewildered expression, the young man tries to process what just happened. The protagonist stares at his own hands, finally realizing he successfully managed to go back in time. He scans the room and wonders if he's really in Midorisaki's city hospital. At that moment, his mother enters the room and worriedly asks if he had another nightmare. She gently approaches and comforts him, saying she's there and he doesn't need to worry. Seeing his mother alive and well before him, Tokiya is utterly shocked, unable to believe that's really his mom. He remembers that in the previous timeline, her consciousness was sealed in the game, leaving her in a vegetative state. Overcome with emotion, the young man hugs her tightly, telling her how much he missed her. Confused by her son's reaction, she asks if his condition has gotten worse. We find out that Kurosu Tokiya has been hospitalized since childhood with a severe dissociative disorder. Because of this, he constantly hears the voices of multiple personalities in his head, but no one believes him, even though his condition prevented him from having a normal life. This was precisely the routine he had always wished for. However, a digital clock on the table reads 5:26, and time is running out. Tokiya realizes that prison day starts at 6 in the evening, which means he only has 34 minutes of freedom. His consciousness will be transferred, and if he loses in the game, his body in the real world will fall into a permanent coma. Knowing that newbies start in E-rank dungeons, he rushes to write down all the strategies he can remember. Aware that the dungeons are simple if you know the rules, he declares he'll finish writing everything in just 10 minutes. Tokiya needs to write in a way his mother can understand to increase her chances, and also to help his friend Kita. His mother then advises him not to overdo it and mentions she's stepping out real quick to take out the trash. Watching her leave, he reflects that unlike his father, his mother never abandoned him. He remembers how his father squandered the family's money and simply left them behind. His mother raised him alone, facing countless hardships, and only now does he understand that the most precious things were always by his side. Abruptly, his room door opens and someone walks in. It was his friend Kita, bringing his favorite snacks, and the protagonist comments that it's been a long time. His friend is confused since they saw each other just 3 days ago, revealing that this is his childhood friend, Jado no Chikita. Kita was the only one who stood up for him as a kid when others treated him poorly because of his condition. However, in his past life, his friend lost his way trying to help him, and our hero vows not to let that tragedy happen again. Back in the present, his curious friend asks what he's writing, and Tokiya replies that it's a strategy guide. His friend questions if he should be playing games, as it might worsen his condition, but the young man insists he has to do this. Kita finally gets it, thinking it must be an an incredible game for him to be so determined to play. The protagonist hands him the notebooks, instructing him to read one and give the other to his mother, leaving his friend baffled. He insists that Kita read and memorize as much as he can, promising it will definitely be useful later. Although finding his friend's behavior strange, the young man agrees and takes the notebooks. Tokia resolves that to protect those he loves, he must clear the dungeons, collect the cards, and become the strongest. The narrator explains that defeating monsters yields cards of various types, like weapons, items, and skills that grant powers. There are only 15 S-rank cards with absolute effects that not even the dark gods can interfere with, one of them being the time reversal card. Determined, Tokia states that the S-rank cards will be his trump cards and that he'll collect them all to defeat the dark gods. The clock on the table approaches 6 o'clock, and the time for the game to start is almost up. Looking at the clock and a photo on the table, the protagonist knows that prison day is about to begin. The photo shows him happy with his mother and Kita, but this peaceful life will be over in just 1 minute. A system notification pops up congratulating him for being selected as a player in the first group. The image on the table begins to glitch, with digital artifacts appearing over the family photo. At that moment, our hero's body starts to digitize as his soul is exported to the game. The system then begins the process of importing his game memories into his mind. Now in the digital space, Tokia vows that this time he will protect his loved ones and become the strongest again, and determined, he promises to defeat the foolish god who is toying with their world. A welcome screen for Prison Day materializes, wishing the players an enjoyable game. The system loads player data for Kurosu Tokia and creates the first E-class dungeon, the Office of Doom. Next, the system tries to erase his real-world memories but fails repeatedly. With the boss generation complete, the young man realizes everything is identical to his previous life. He finds himself in a dungeon that looks exactly like a real-world office. The protagonist knows that some players have their memories wiped, but for some reason, his remain intact. Already knowing what's coming, he braces himself for the opening E-class dungeon. The dungeon is called the Office of Doom, and several people are at their desks, oblivious to the danger. To clear this low-level dungeon, one must defeat 3 bosses, each with different abilities. Without wasting a second, the protagonist commands the system to open his status panel, and a blue screen appears. With that, Kurosu Tokia's status panel opens, revealing his player information. He notes that everything has been reset, and defeating the 3 bosses is now nearly impossible, so his priority is to level up his skills. The young man wonders about the unidentifiable blessing, and if it's connected to his past life memories. Regardless, he needs a skill card to defeat the first stage boss and plans his next move. Suddenly, an idea strikes the protagonist as he remembers something crucial about this dungeon. He recalls a secret side quest, and if he can get a skill card there, victory won't be so difficult. With 10 minutes left before the main mission starts, Tokia gets up, determined, knowing there's still time to act. Rushing through the office, he remembers the voice he's heard since childhood, noting it's gotten clearer since he was reborn. The voices spoke of saving the Earth, insisting that to win, they needed to merge their powers with his to defeat the Dark God. Confused by this, he wonders if he can obtain a power separate from the S-rank cards. He then stops in front of the men's restroom door, his destination. Deciding to unravel the mystery of the voices later, he enters the restroom, focused on the side quest. Upon arriving, he confirms this is the spot and that his first task is to unlock the treasure chest. A system notification informs him he has reached the secret location and the side quest is starting. A blue screen reveals the mission's name, the secret hidden in the men's room. Wasting no time, the protagonist kicks the stall door hard, yelling that he's going to clear this at top speed. Inside the stall, a small horned, blue creature is startled by the sudden intrusion. The system identifies the creature as the Cowardly Ogre, an urban legend perched on top of the chest. The little monster tries to look threatening, puffing out its chest and letting out a fierce growl to intimidate the young man. But with glowing red eyes, Tokia yells at the ogre to get out of the way or it'll face the consequences. The little monster cringes in fear at the protagonist's threat, looking like it's about to cry. With a terrified yelp, the small blue creature scrambles and leaps away from the young man. A system notification appears, informing him that the Cowardly Ogre has been defeated and he's secured the chest. The hero reflects that such a weak creature was guarding the treasure as it fled the moment he threatened it. But the system states that although the chest contains the reward, it can't be opened without a key. Unconcerned, the protagonist simply stomps down hard, shattering the treasure chest. With that, the system just announces that the player has successfully broken the treasure chest. He comments that many get fooled by the display and miss this, but a newbie can easily claim the cards. The system then lists the acquired items: stamina, speed, and power cards, all E-class. He holds the 3 basic skill cards, stating that with them, he can finally activate his player status. The young man then activates the cards, and his body is enveloped in a green aura as his skills level up. The system confirms his speed, power, and stamina have increased to level 1, with a cap at level 5. He notes the effect is small but clear, and now he can take on the 3 bosses. His status panel updates, activates, now showing his basic skills at level 1, along with the unidentifiable blessing. Activating the panel with the cards makes him a formal player, and even at level 1, he's far beyond a normal human. To test his new strength, the protagonist punches the bathroom wall, which cracks on impact, and a huge crater is left in the wall. He figures that with these stats and his past life experience, he should clear this dungeon with ease, but he knows that defeating the gods and protecting the world is still a distant goal. With that, he vows to use every tool at his disposal, including the power of the owner of that voice. Looking at the system screen, the protagonist says he needs to better understand this unidentifiable blessing. He then shouts at the system, asking if the owner of the voice gave him this weird blessing, and admits he was just messing around, as he didn't expect an answer anyway. Suddenly, a mysterious voice echoes in his mind, declaring that from now on, everything depends on him. In that instant, dark, ominous silhouettes begin to form around our hero in the bathroom. The shadows then completely envelop him, pulling him into a dark, unknown space. Utterly confused, the young man finds himself floating in a void, unable to comprehend what's happening. The voice continues its message, stating that they are always watching him from somewhere. He demands to know who they are, why they are helping him with this mysterious blessing, and what their motives are. The entity replies that first, he must prove his worth, as their help was merely a whim. Back in the bathroom, the voice warns him that the battle is about to begin, and he must hurry. With a determined look, Takia states that he wants their power and will undoubtedly prove his strength. A system notification announces the countdown has ended, the boss has been generated, and attack mode has begun. The screen welcomes them to prison day and announces that the challenge in the Office of Doom dungeon is starting. A warning appears, indicating that anyone not in position will fail the raid, with a time limit of 59 seconds. The protagonist runs, confident that with his speed card, he'll make it with time to spare. With only 18 seconds left, the tension mounts as he sprints through the office. However, two men are blocking the front door, shouting that they don't have time for games. Annoyed, the hero thinks that there are always some fools who can't grasp the situation. As soon as the timer hits 0, the two players at the door are instantly eliminated. The other players are stunned by the scene, realizing this game is real and deadly. Takia just watches calmly, commenting that if you break the rules here, it's simply game over. Suddenly, a red digital gate begins to close, and everyone panics, not knowing what to do. A warning flashes indicating the boss will appear soon, and the battle against the E-rank monsters will begin. Amid the chaos, the silhouettes of the first boss and its minions appear before them. The protagonist already knew this would happen, and that to clear the dungeon, all bosses must fall. With that, the first boss materializes, looking like a janitor, and announces it's time to take out the trash. The system displays the stats of the E-rank scavenger boss, wielding an iron broom and a sharp dustpan. Its minions are the cleaners, E-rank monsters with much more basic stats and weapons than the boss. One of the players scoffs at the monsters, saying a mere E-rank is nothing to worry about. A huge man agrees, boasting that he'll take down those wimps with just a few good punches. Takia warns everyone to stay calm, as their strength defies common sense and they shouldn't be arrogant. He knows that even at level 1, these monsters are beyond what a civilian can handle, and brute force is a one-way ticket to elimination. The big guy gets angry and tells the protagonist to shut up, since he barely made it in time and has no right to talk. With a wicked grin, he declares he'll strike first and go for the top of the elimination rankings. The man is already dreaming of becoming a billionaire with cars, mansions, and women. High risk, high reward. He then charges forward, yelling for the monster to become just another stepping stone to his vast fortune. However, the boss stops the attack with its iron broom, which glows with an intense green energy. The brute is sent flying, crashing hard onto the floor and leaving the other players terrified. The boss then announces that the cleaning shift has begun, and its minions advance on the horrified players. The boss laughs, declaring that all the trash here needs to be sanitized as players scream for help. But amid this chaos, our hero remains composed, preparing to spring into action. He launches himself at one of the monsters, landing a powerful punch that sends it flying backward. On impact, the minion hits the ground and dissolves into green light, signaling its defeat. The young man states that to clear the game, the boss must be defeated, and he needs to get stronger and claim an S-rank card. The other players are stunned to see someone fighting back, even after the muscular guy was taken down. One of the minions gets up, insisting it must continue cleaning the trash, proving it's not over yet. Wielding a broom, the protagonist attacks the monster with a powerful energy-infused vertical strike. The minion dissolves into light particles, and a red card appears in its place as a reward. He explains that the reward notification only appears if you land the finishing blow, otherwise, you have to finish the job. The players are baffled, wondering who he is, since he's clearly stronger than the muscular guy from before. The young man reflects that even at a low level, defeating these monsters can yield one of 3 cards. Without delay, the protagonist decides to activate the power card he just acquired in battle. The system confirms his power has increased from level 1 to level 2 with the card's activation. Immediately after, another of the boss's minions appears, ready to attack our hero with with its iron broom. He knows that after awakening, even a single level difference is enough to dominate an opponent. The monster charges with its broom, trying to strike our protagonist, but the hero declares that the monster isn't even worth his precious time. With a single swift and precise strike, he defeats the minion, which vanishes into light before him. He obtains another power card, raising his power level to 3 and making him even stronger. Suddenly, the young man senses an attack from behind and turns to defend himself. With a quick and precise move, he uses his iron broom to counter-attack and defeat the creature. Tokiya then says with an air of superiority that cheap shots don't work on him. A system notification confirms he's defeated another cleaner and obtained an E rank speed card. He holds the new green card, noting that speed is another crucial attribute for victory. The boss and its remaining minions turn to the young man, calling him filthy, disgusting trash. The narrator explains that due to aggro value, players with many eliminations are targeted more, increasing the difficulty. The hero knows the boss's skill boosts its power, so he must fight alone and take them down one by one. With that, the boss and its last 2 minions charge at our protagonist with everything they've got. Tokiya yells to the other players, telling them to throw things at the monsters to buy him time for a counter-attack. He thinks that if there's anyone here with potential, he can help them clear the dungeon, allowing more people to survive. However, the other players are terrified, saying they'll be eliminated if they attack the monsters. Seeing their cowardice, the protagonist realizes he'll have to create his own opportunity. The boss charges with its broom raised, yelling trash as it prepares to strike, but the young man hurls a keyboard at the monster, which blocks the attack and creates a small window of opportunity. The other players are surprised by his move, and the hero reacts, seeing that it worked. One of the players then shouts to the others that the young man is fighting for them and they need to help, but the man in the suit holds him back, yelling that normal people like them can't fight monsters. The boss becomes enraged at the players, declaring it will sanitize all these piles of trash. With that, the monster charges toward the other players, who scream in terror at its approach. A player screams in despair, begging for someone to do something as the monster closes in, but Tokiya acts quickly, taking down the 2 remaining minions at once and saving the young man. With a confident smile, he thinks that with his current stats, he can end this in a second, leaving only the boss. The system rewards him with another speed card and a power card for defeating the minions. The boss then turns to another player, shouting that it needs to sanitize the trash, while the man begs for help. Then the protagonist appears behind the monster and coldly states that the only trash here is him. With a single precise and powerful strike, he finishes off the boss, which collapses with no chance to retaliate. The system congratulates player Kurosu Tokiya for successfully defeating the first stage boss. With that, the contribution ranking is unlocked, and the young man receives prizes for defeating the boss. With 700 points, he ranks first and discovers that leaders receive the number 1 S rank card. He reflects that he didn't get this card in his past life, and wonders about its power. He notices the other players haven't defeated any monsters yet, but knows staying at the top will be a challenge. It's explained that the ranking includes all players invited to the first dungeon worldwide. The arrival of Prison Day occurred simultaneously across the globe, affecting countless people at once. He remembers that in his previous life, there were many powerful individuals with unique and incredible abilities. Since the rewards and rankings change with each dungeon, he must always clear them with a perfect score. Now stronger than ever, he vows to defeat the Dark God, and for that, he needs the number 1 card. The system then displays his rewards: 2 stamina cards and 2 special cards, Purity and Iron Seed. He's surprised by the Iron Seed, commenting that he got lucky as it can create a weapon based on his aura. The Iron Seed card creates a dedicated iron weapon and offers a chance to obtain a special one. He thinks the best possible weapons would be a sword or a katana and hopes for good luck. The protagonist then turns to the man in glasses who helped him earlier, startling him. Tokiya notes that the man helped him in a dangerous situation, a quality needed for a good player. The hero thanks him for distracting the boss, but the man humbly says he was just trying to save himself. Because of this, he offers the man some cards, explaining they can awaken his powers and help him, but the man in glasses feels embarrassed and refuses, insisting the protagonist is the one who should use them. Tokiya insists, telling him not to be shy, since he helped and deserves the reward. He then demonstrates how to use the cards, thinking he needs to boost his own attributes for the second stage. Without wasting another moment, our hero activates his own cards to prepare for the next challenge. His power and speed stats rise to level 4, and the man in glasses finally understands the process. Adachi then activates his cards and feels his body become lighter, experiencing a level up for the first time. His status window appears, revealing his name Adachi Fumihiko and his new basic attributes. He's shocked to see he's gained experience points without directly defeating a monster. Tokiya explains that simply contributing to a fight grants experience, and leveling up also boosts attributes. Adachi then asks for our hero's level, and he replies that he's already at level 4, leaving the man stunned. stunned. Next, we see Tokia's updated status panel, showing he has already reached level 4 in everything. He then picks up the iron seed, excited to see what weapon his aura will generate. The seed begins to transform in his hand, releasing an intense and powerful blue energy. The sword is a growth-type weapon that absorbs an opponent's HP and gains a new skill every 10 levels. He comments that it's not bad at all, and being a rare weapon, it could rival a C, rank 1. Adachi is baffled, saying this is more than amazing and exactly what you'd expect from the one who defeated the monster. The protagonist thinks the new weapon is nowhere near what he used in his past life but admits it has potential. A system notification congratulates everyone for successfully clearing the first stage of the dungeon. Immediately after, the second stage is announced, and all players must proceed to the boss's cafeteria. The young man realizes everything is unfolding exactly as it did in his past life, which calms his nerves. He then invites Adachi to join him, and the man in glasses accepts without hesitation. Tokiya explains he wants a smart companion for the future, and Adachi is an excellent choice. Thrilled with the opportunity, the man accepts, and the protagonist hurries them to the next location. The other players then start begging to be taken along, promising rewards and favors. One player argues that if he's so skilled, he should help others and take everyone with him. With his eyes glowing red with fury, the protagonist threatens to crush the man if he doesn't move. The players are utterly terrified by the threat and our hero's intimidating aura. Without another word, he and Adachi walk past the other players, who clear a path in fear. One of the players comments on his terrifying gaze, and how that look sent a chill down his spine. Adachi asks if he's really going to leave the others behind, but the protagonist says they'd only slow him down. He coldly states that he has no duty to save everyone, and that he's no saint. Adachi then promises to do his best not to be a burden, and Tokiya warns him about the next boss. The man in glasses is intrigued by the mention of mental corruption and asks if it's a debuff from the monster. They arrive at the boss's cafeteria, where the system instructs them to be seated to participate in the second stage. Upon entering, the delicious aroma of food fills the air, and a red monster appears before them. Adachi lets out a startled scream as the bright red monster suddenly materializes in front of him. Tokiya warns him to sit down quickly, or he'll be eliminated like the others who didn't follow the rules. They take their seats, and the man in glasses comments that since it's close to the first stage, no one should be late. But the protagonist counters that if they make the wrong choice, they won't make it in time. Meanwhile, the other players are desperately running down the hall, regretting not leaving sooner. The countdown hits just 10 seconds, and the tension rises for the late players. They finally reach the cafeteria and scramble to find a place to sit. The timer then hits 0, and the system announces the end of the countdown for the second stage. One of the last players to arrive stands at the door relieved, thinking he's safe. But suddenly, he feels a terrifying presence right behind him, and his eyes widen in fear. The stage boss attacks him from behind, declaring his time is up, and he's out of the game. The other players are shocked, realizing the red cook is the stage boss. With a cart full of bizarre food, the boss orders all players to eat. Adachi grimaces in disgust as the boss serves a disgusting green sludge on his plate. The meal seems to be made from the monsters of the previous stage, making it even more grotesque. The reflection in Adachi's glasses reveals his pure terror and revulsion at the situation. He then realizes the substance in the food is one of the monsters from before, and is horrified. The system warns that looking at the food will cause mental corruption, lowering their stats. Adachi worries that with reduced attributes, clearing the dungeon will be much harder, but Tokiya stares at the disgusting meal and calmly tells his friend that's not all. A system notification declares the underworld banquet has been served, and leaving leftovers will result in retaliation from the monster. With 7 minutes remaining, a warning informs that if a player's mental value drops to 0, they will be disqualified. Adachi panics as if they don't eat, they'll be eliminated, but he can't imagine swallowing that stuff. With a confident smile, Tokiya agrees it's tougher than the first stage, but he knows the way to clear it. His friend offers to help, but the hero tells him to wait and use the purity card if needed. The mental corruption intensifies, and the system informs that the player's mental power is steadily decreasing. One female player says that just looking at the disgusting food makes her want to throw up. The protagonist knows that with their skills reduced by the corruption, defeating the 4 monsters is impossible. The standard strategy is to eat the banquet and distract the monsters, but that yields only minimal points and rewards. Suddenly, the system announces that his unknown blessing has made him immune to mental attacks, which shocks him. With a confident grin, the young man declares that now they can clear it using the hidden high difficulty rule. He's excited because now they can aim for the high score rewards to protect his ranking. One of the players rebels, throwing his plate on the floor and yelling that he won't eat that crap. Adachi notes the man's mental state hasn't collapsed, and Tokiya explains that the mind deteriorates faster. The player completely snaps, stomping on the disgusting food on the floor while laughing and shouting that he absolutely will not eat. In that instant, the boss appears and lands a powerful blow on the player who refused the food. The monster warns that if he doesn't eat, he'll be eliminated, but the fallen man still refuses to comply. The boss then grabs the player's face, its hand glowing with an intense red energy. The man is dragged away by the monster, still laughing hysterically and refusing to eat the sludge. The kitchen door slams shut, taking the disobedient player and the boss with it. One of the players says that if they don't eat, they'll be removed, but there's no way to stomach that food. A system alert shows that no player has finished the banquet, and everyone's mental strength is now at 60%. The protagonist explains that the hidden rule to clear this stage involves starting on easy and then switching to hard. He then stands up and throws his plate on the floor, yelling that it's impossible to eat that. The first condition is to attract the monster's attention to switch the game to hard mode, which he just did. The system warns that the cook monster has locked onto him, raising his elimination risk to 80%. The boss appears behind him, threatening to put his brain in a pot and cook it. The second condition is to defeat an enemy to focus the other monster's aggro on him, and that's his next move. With his sword in hand, he charges at one of the monsters, attacking it with a swift and precise strike. He follows up with a spinning attack, defeating the monster with a single decisive blow. A notification confirms the Malesprite has been defeated, rewarding him with 2 power cards and 1 stamina card. With that, the second stage officially begins, and his power status is updated to level 5. As one enemy has been defeated, the other 3's aggro shoots to 100%, activating hard mode. This is the hidden high difficulty rule, First Strike, which makes all monsters focus on him. The 3 remaining monsters enter rage mode, their eyes glowing red, ready to attack. By taking one down, he managed to draw the attention of the others, protecting the other players. He knows that with all the aggro focused on him, the chance of elimination is much higher, so he must be careful. Therefore, he needs to keep his distance and conserve his strength for the final battle against the boss. As the sole target, he can't use distractions and must fight with everything he's got. One of the monsters threatens him, saying he won't escape and will be turned into minced meat. The butcher charges with its cleaver, but the protagonist stops the blow with his new blue sword. Gritting his teeth, he manages to hold back the monster's attack, which seems surprised by his strength. The monster can't believe the young man stopped its blade and prepares to use a new technique. It activates its instant knife handling skill, unleashing a flurry of strikes on the hero, but with a smirk, the protagonist thinks he's got him, having already devised a plan to win. He knows he doesn't have enough cards and needs to defeat the minions to unlock his sword's ability. With that, he dodges the attacks and begins to counter the monsters with swift and precise strikes. The monster taunts him, asking if he can keep up with its speed, boasting about being the fastest of the cooks. It declares the young man will lose and questions if his allies can defeat a cursed sword like his. The hero continues to fight masterfully, landing multiple hits on the 3 monsters at once. His sword begins to glow as he successfully blocks one of the monster's attacks. One of the creatures cries out in surprise as a projectile is fired from our protagonist's sword. The monster wonders how their skills can be identical, and how this can be so unfair. The sword's exclusive skill is unlocked, allowing him to use the powerful time-slicing slash. The monster then realizes that the young man's attacks were charging up his skill points. Desperate, it yells for the others to run, realizing it was all a well-planned trap. But with a wicked grin, the protagonist says it's too late and activates his new skill. With a single powerful slash of red energy, he hits all 3 monsters at once. The system confirms the butcher, the gastronome, and the chopper have all been defeated. With victory secured, he comments that the most obvious traps are often the most real and collects his rewards. Adachi is relieved, saying his hands are sweating but that the protagonist calculated everything perfectly. A system warning informs that the hidden rule has been activated, and the stage boss is now in rage, boosting its skills. Adachi panics, seeing that the boss's skills have increased due to the hidden rule. Suddenly, the entire cafeteria begins to shake with a sinister red energy, heralding the boss's arrival. The protagonist warns everyone that the boss is stronger now, and if they don't defeat it, they will all be eliminated. The hidden rule forces a direct confrontation, but increases the rewards by 30% in return. With a determined look, the hero declares that his goal in this world is to claim the best rewards. The kitchen door explodes, and the boss appears, its hands glowing with red energy. Furious, it roars, demanding to know who eliminated its precious cooks as its stats are revealed. Adachi is terrified by the boss's power, wondering if they can win this fight. Without hesitation, the protagonist uses all his available cards, preparing for the final showdown. He knows he can't hold back against the enhanced boss and unleashes his full power. 4 skill cards are used at once, maxing out his power, speed, and stamina stats. Since E-rank cards have a limit level 5, the remaining speed cards are now useless. He tosses the extra cards to Adachi, telling him to use them immediately to help in the fight. The man in glasses activates the speed cards he received from our protagonist, strengthening himself. His speed and stamina stats increase, and he realizes the hero gave him the cards to help him survive. The boss bellows furiously once more, demanding to know who was responsible for eliminating its cooks. The other players are paralyzed by the monster's roar, losing the will to resist its power, but Adachi realizes he doesn't feel fear, as the card's power is protecting him from the boss's roar. The boss threatens the players, saying it will crush their heads if they don't reveal who eliminated its cooks. Suddenly, something cuts through the air at high speed towards the monster, just as it's about to strike. It was the protagonist who materializes and blocks the boss's attack with his sword, saving the others. The monster is shocked that its attack was stopped by a mere player and glares at him in anger. Tokiya then takes the blame, defiantly stating that he was the one who eliminated the cooks. The boss vows to make him pay in the most miserable way possible, saying it will take his brain after the others. But the hero cuts him off with a smirk, retorting that he'll be slicing his neck before that happens. The monster laughs, challenging him to try as it charges with its cleaver, ready for an all-out assault. The impact of their clash creates a powerful shockwave that cracks the cafeteria floor. Adachi shouts the protagonist's name in concern as he sees him thrown back by the boss's sheer force. But the young man gets up, reassuring his anxious friend that he's fine. He reflects that it's been a long time since he heard someone call him that, and his mind drifts to the past. In his previous life, his friends called him by that name, but they were all lost along the journey. He then sadly remembers how his comrades fell, leaving him completely alone. With a grim expression, he wonders why he was the only one to survive amidst so much tragedy. The boss charges again, yelling that it will slice him to pieces and preparing for another powerful attack. The protagonist thinks that he didn't understand back then, but now he knows what must be done. He glares at the monster with determination, shouting for it to prepare for the end with a deathly look. The two then clash their weapons once more, with the impact of the battle echoing throughout the cafeteria. The protagonist's sword begins to glow with an intense red energy as he readies his final attack. The boss is surprised by the speed of the young man's attack, wondering if he was holding back before. Using his slicing slash ability, the protagonist unleashes a barrage of red slashes. He reflects that he survived his past life because he was brave and never hesitated. With a cry of determination, he declares that more than anything, he always wanted to win and be the best. He vows that nothing will stop him from achieving victory. But it's not just about winning. The protagonist states he wants to protect everyone's lives and preserve a normal, peaceful world. The system announces the second stage boss has been defeated, and the reward is increased by 30%. His rewards include power, stamina, and speed cards, along with a special memory card. He also receives a surprise buff from the boss that increases one skill by 3 levels for 10 minutes. The hero realizes that without triggering the hidden rule, he wouldn't have earned the extra contribution points. He then opens the ranking screen to check his current score and the status of other players. With 1,700 points, he remains in first place and sees the same top players from his past life. He knows they are all talented and will undoubtedly become key players in the future. The dark gods won't leave them alone, preparing cruel stages where many strong players were sacrificed. But in this life he plans to acquire the S rank card that can resist them and eagerly awaits their reunion. He then glares at the images of his former rivals, bracing himself for the challenges to come. A system notification congratulates everyone for clearing the second stage and announces the start of the final stage. The remaining time is just under 5 minutes, and all players must proceed to the underground lobby. With a serious expression, the protagonist prepares himself, as the final and most challenging stage is about to begin. He then calls his friend Adachi, who responds promptly, ready to follow his lead. Adachi timidly follows the protagonist, feeling somewhat intimidated by his powerful presence. He then gets the young man's attention and offers him a handkerchief, which leaves the hero a bit confused. His friend holds out the handkerchief, moving closer to offer the small gesture of kindness. Tokiya asks if it's a napkin, and Adachi explains he found it on a table and thought he could wipe his face. With a sheepish smile, he adds that if he were more useful, his new friend's burden would be lighter. The protagonist is touched by the gesture, thinking that there really are many good people in the world. He reassures him that's not true, and that he's been a great help, which moves Adachi. Suddenly, several blue creatures appear in the hallway, announcing that the 2 previous stages have been breached. With a wick grin, the monster tells everyone not to hold back and to devour everything in their path. The countdown to reach the lobby begins, giving them just over 4 minutes to get there. Adachi asks if the trick to beating the boss was his speed, and if having high stats guarantees victory. The protagonist explains that it's not that simple, as it also depends on individual skill. His friend then worries, admitting he's bad at sports and wouldn't be able to dodge attacks even with level 5 speed. Adachi looks at him with admiration, thinking he must have undergone special training to be so strong. They stop at the top of a staircase, and the hero prepares to give his friend the next set of instructions. He tells Adachi to wait there and warn anyone who arrives not to run, which confuses the young man. Tokiya explains it's a crucial hidden rule, and if they're judged for fleeing, they won't be able to get out. Adachi asks what's wrong, but the protagonist doesn't answer and simply turns to go down. He says that since his friend didn't defeat the boss, it would be too dangerous for him to go down. Adachi understands and promises to warn everyone with a salute, making Tokiya think his friend is a good guy. He knows that with help, he can easily unlock the hidden rule, but doing it alone will be tough. Tokiya is aware that the third stage contains 10 level 5 guards and 1 level 7 boss. It's a much harder stage than the second, with formidable guards and an even stronger leader. In his past life, the only way to clear it was by cooperating and fighting the enemies as a team. Suddenly, he hears someone call his name from the top of the stairs and turns to see who it is. A smirk crosses his face as he realizes the person he was waiting for has finally arrived. In his past life, this person also discovered the hidden rule and was the key to their group's victory. His name is Kanami Yuya, and in the previous timeline, he stood out even before our protagonist. Adachi tries to deliver the "don't run" message, but Yuya misinterprets it as a taunt. Tokiya steps in, clarifying that it's not a joke but a warning from a teammate. Yuya acknowledges his impressive performance in the second stage, admitting he didn't need any help. But now that he understands the situation, he wants to challenge the hero to prove who's stronger. He lunges to attack, but the protagonist warns him to focus on defeating the next boss first. The hero states that he's facing the wrong enemy, and that they should join forces to win. With a single, swift, and precise strike, he hits Yuya in the chest, sending him flying backward. The young man is shocked by Tokiya's superhuman strength, unable to believe what just happened. He wonders if it's a game-induced boost or some kind of special skill he's unaware of. The protagonist then offers Yuya 3 cards, inviting him to join the battle. With a suspicious look, the young man asks what he means by "join you," and stares him down. The hero confirms, adding that if he joins him, the 3 power cards are his. The protagonist then flicks a memory card at Yuya, which hits him square in the forehead. The green card glows brightly, beginning to restore the young man's memories and leaving him stunned by the sensation. Tokiya knows that erasing memories makes it hard to unite, as without them, there's no reason to protect anything. He's aware that the Dark God understands human nature, and this is its greatest weapon against them. The memory awakens Yuya's recollections, and a green aura completely envelopes him. The hero says he knows who Yuya cares about and asks if he'll accept his proposal now. Yuya remembers his younger brother and realizes he needs to survive to see him again. He then asks if by joining the protagonist, they are guaranteed to clear the dungeon. With a confident smile, Tokiya assures him they are and tosses him the 3 power cards. Yuya promises not to forget this favor and activates the cards, boosting his power stats. Tokiya announces he'll go on ahead, as there are still enemies to be defeated along the way. He then activates his own power cards and the surprise boss buff to prepare himself. The hero knows that even at level 7, the next boss will be a challenge, and he needs more power. Fortunately, the buff increases his power by 3 levels, making him significantly stronger for the battle. With a smirk, he thanks the boss for the help and notes that his power has gone up another level. Suddenly, several blue monsters appear before them, ready for the stage's final combat. The monsters taunt the two, calling them scrawny and claiming they won't withstand their powerful attacks. For the first time, Yuya feels the intimidating presence of the monsters, and is a bit unsettled. He then wonders if just the 2 of them can really defeat these powerful creatures, but the protagonist reassures him, stating that the 2 of them are more than enough to win. The system displays the player's stats, with Tokiya at power level 11 and Yuya at level 2. With his power boosted, the protagonist declares that he is now the stage boss and prepares to attack. He charges at the monsters with his sword drawn, but Yuya yells for him to wait and not rush in. The young man thinks the hero's actions are suicidal and doesn't understand why he's taking such a risk. Yuya remembers his underground fights, where he always faced strangers in dangerous combat. He knows the best strategy in these situations is to carefully analyze the opponent. With a confident smirk, his opponent charges forward, aiming a powerful and precise punch. He closely watches the enemy's movements, preparing to counter and defend. With a swift move, he dodges the blow and lands a powerful punch that instantly takes down his opponent. But Tokiya warns him not to charge in blindly, or he'll be defeated by the blue monsters. One of the guards calls him a weakling and threatens him with its electric baton as its stats are revealed. The monster then launches a preemptive strike, trying to hit the protagonist with its baton. With his sword ready, he prepares to counter, delivering a powerful and precise blow. Yuya is impressed by the young man's speed and power, wondering if he was holding back before. The guard senses something is off with him and orders the others to use their skills and attack as a group. With 56 seconds remaining, a system alert warns all players to enter the underground lobby. The 2 then face each other in silence, preparing for the final combat that is about to begin. Yuya and Toki exchange glances, bracing for the battle that awaits them in the underground lobby. He knows that as a hidden rule, the enemies will attack the moment moment they step into the lobby, even during the countdown. With his sword glowing blue, he attacks the guards with a powerful, spinning slash. With 49 seconds left, he thinks that he needs to defeat as many monsters as possible to protect everyone. Adachi tries to calm the other players, assuring them they have plenty of time to reach the lobby. The protagonist realizes his friend understood the plan, and is pleased with his quick thinking. With 21 seconds left, Adachi instructs everyone to enter the underground lobby in an orderly fashion. He understands the hero's intention is to buy time until the last second, preventing anyone from entering the lobby prematurely. The countdown hits just 12 seconds, and the tension rises for the players who haven't entered yet. Yuya argues that the enemies aren't that strong, and that they should help the protagonist in the battle, but Takia yells for him to stay back and not interfere in the fight against the blue guards. The monsters comment that the young man is too strong, and that they need to recharge by targeting the other players. The hero then gets Yuya's attention, declaring that now it's his turn to join the fight. One of the guards charges at the players, but Yuya steps in front to protect them from the attack. With a roar of anger, he tries to block the monster's blow but is sent flying backward. He then yells at the monster not to dare touch the others, realizing there's a reason the hero is protecting them. Yuya tries to hit the guard with his fists but finds that his punches aren't dealing any damage. He then wonders how the protagonist is managing to fight against such powerful monsters. Adachi tells everyone to stay quiet so they don't attract the monsters, adding that the hero will handle it. The other players agree, deciding the only thing they can do now is trust them. They then hope the two can hold their ground and not fall to the blue monsters. The protagonist realizes his sword skill points have fully accumulated. One of the guards then orders the other monsters to attack all at once and end the fight. With a confident look, the protagonist says he was thinking the exact same thing as the monsters. He then unleashes his time-slicing slash, hitting all the guards at once with his powerful ability. Adachi and the others are in awe, commenting on how amazing it is to have someone so strong on their side. Meanwhile, Yuya struggles to take on a single guard, wondering how the hero is so overwhelmingly powerful. Takia then faces the last guard standing, warning with a cold look that he's next. But this guard is the final level 7 boss, and it stares back at the young man with a psychopathic grin. The monster says it takes pleasure in finishing off guys like the protagonist and readies itself for battle. The other players are terrified by the boss's level 10 power and start doubting their chances of victory. The hero charges forward, remembering that in his past life, this boss took down many people in a long, drawn-out fight. With his sword, he unleashes a powerful slash of red energy toward the enemy, but he thinks that this time, he alone will be more than enough to win. The boss lets out a maniacal laugh and manages to block our protagonist's powerful attack. Unrelenting, Takia pushes forward with determination to continue the combat. He uses his ability again, unleashing a torrent of red slashes upon the giant monster. Under the barrage of blows, the final boss is completely annihilated, dissolving into light. The system then displays the young man's status screen, revealing he has leveled up to 8. He realizes that by defeating the weaker monsters, he obtained cards that significantly boosted his power. The protagonist reflects that the best part about fighting alone is claiming all the XP and cards for himself. Adachi and the others are in shock at his inhuman strength, vowing to follow him forever. Seeing only one monster left, Yuya charges, yelling that he'll finish it with a single punch. But the monster retorts furiously that Yuya is the one who's going down. However, before the redhead can attack, the protagonist appears and slices the guard in half with one blow. Yuya collapses to the floor, stunned, unable to believe he instantly defeated the monster he struggled so much against. A system notification congratulates everyone for clearing the dungeon and displays the ranking with Takia at 99%. With a confident expression, the hero awaits the reward calculation, wondering what bonus he'll receive. The screen reveals that the survival reward allows them to take everything back to the real world. The other players are ecstatic to see they'll also receive rewards for their efforts. The protagonist thinks that clearing the dungeon grants a basic prize that helps with survival, but there's a catch. In his previous life, stronger individuals began using their powers for evil in the real world. Therefore, this time he decides he must establish rules to manage players as soon as possible. For that, he needs support and knows his high ranking will attract some powerful figures. The overall contribution ranking screen places him firmly in first place with a 3,000-point lead. He sees himself as the undisputed leader, and to everyone else, he's the one who calls the shots. At that moment, all the players receive their abilities, feeling their bodies grow stronger and lighter. Adachi is also thrilled to see his new attributes, even though they're all at level 1. Yuya also checks his panel, feeling much stronger with his stats now at level 2. As for the protagonist, he examines his status and sees his power has reached an impressive level 15. The system then announces that contribution rewards will be generated based on each one's percentage. The two young men wonder if they'll receive anything with such a low contribution, lamenting they didn't fight more. Tokia is also unsure what he'll receive, as his contribution in his past life wasn't nearly as high. Adachi is pleased because with his new power card, he can increase his skill score again. Meanwhile, Yua boasts about getting 2 cards, saying his contribution was amazing. They then look at the protagonist, wondering what kind of reward he'll get. With a smile, the hero says this is all new to him as he receives 3 glowing cards. His rewards are a card that raises stats to level 10, another that allows for a class change, and a third that summons allies. He's thrilled, realizing he can now boost his skills and gather allies simultaneously, feeling incredibly lucky. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake, and the other players panic. Not understanding what's happening, they realize the dungeon is collapsing and wonder if they can finally return to reality. The protagonist confirms that upon clearing a dungeon, they can return to the real world for a short time, but he warns them that the world has changed and that the creator of this deadly game is trying to destroy everything. The others are shocked, wondering who in the world would do something so terrible. Tokia then tells them he's counting on everyone to do their best in the next dungeon that appears. He encourages them to gain power to defeat the villain who trapped them and to protect the world. Adachi is confused by the word protect and doesn't quite understand the hero's speech. Yuya, however, just eyes him suspiciously, thinking the protagonist is making some very bold claims. A system notification that announces that for placing first, the young man has earned a special S-rank card. A shadowy entity materializes, stating that if he proves himself worthy, it will grant him the power of a god. Suddenly, the protagonist wakes up back in his hospital bed, realizing he has returned to the real world. He sighs, hoping the others will believe him, as he needs more power to save the world. At that moment, a nurse rushes into the room, shouting to the doctor that the patient has finally awakened. The doctor confirms he is completely lucid and his vitals are all normal, but he reveals that hundreds of thousands of people have fallen into a coma, just like him in the last 3 days. The doctor notes the young man was the first to wake up and asks if he knows the cause of the mass coma. However, Tokia ignores the question and with a serious look asks the doctor where his mother is. The man leads him to her room, explaining that she also fell into a coma and has not yet awakened. In a professional tone, he states that in medical terms, the protagonist's mother is in a vegetative state. The hero then realizes that just like in his past life, his mother was also chosen as a player. He knows that not all players are sent at once, and that those who fail end up in this condition. Looking at his mother, he remembers that those chosen for the game simply cannot return. With that, he touches the golden card in his pocket, reflecting that his greatest wish is about to come true. His only desire was for his mother to live in peace, free from any more suffering. He then reveals that he possesses the special S-rank card number 1, called Free. With it, he can prevent someone from being chosen for the game and also gain a special ability. Resolved, he decides now is the time to use the card and free his beloved mother from this deadly game. The doctor is blinded by the intense golden light, wondering what on earth is happening. Shocked by the scene, the doctor adjusts his glasses, trying to comprehend the phenomenon he's witnessing. With eyes wide in amazement, he stammers that he just can't believe it. His mother then wakes up, confused, asking where she is and calling for her son and the doctor. Without a second thought, the young man rushes to hug his mother with all his might, completely overcome with emotion. With a gentle smile, he tells her that from this day on, she no longer needs to fight and suffer. The doctor is stunned by the scene, wondering if what he just witnessed was a miracle. Meanwhile, the world contribution ranking shows Kurosu Tokia's name standing alone in first place. Because of this, several mysterious figures decide they must recruit the world's #1 player. They fear that with so much power, the young man could become the new ruler of the world. Back at the hospital, his mother recounts a strange dream about a terrifying amusement park. The protagonist listens with a smile, realizing she ended up in a deadly park-themed dungeon. She continues, saying a monster almost attacked her, but something happened at that exact moment. According to her, everything suddenly went dark, and she lost consciousness right there. When she woke up, the first thing she saw was her son's face, and she asks if it wasn't a bizarre dream. With a gentle smile, the young man thinks that unfortunately, what she experienced was not a dream. Suddenly, Kita's voice echoes in the room, and the hero realizes he also managed to clear the dungeon. His friend bursts in, proclaiming he came to the rescue and felt like a manga protagonist. He says strong people helped him clear it, and the mother asks if he also had a strange dream. The protagonist makes a bored expression, thinking his friend has the same energy as all hallways. He then asks his mother to rest, saying he's gonna talk with Kita outside for a moment. In the hallway, his friend insists it's no joke and that the weird game even had a name. Tokia cuts him off, stating the game's name is Prison Day, which leaves Kita in shock. The hero then tells him to check the contribution ranking to prove it's all real. Utterly confused, his friend just scratches his head, wondering what this ranking thing is. At that moment, a blue system screen materializes before him, leaving him completely speechless. With eyes wide in amazement, his friend stammers as he sees the name of the number 1 player. The protagonist then confirms with a smirk that what he's seeing is the absolute truth. The system screen shows that the first place in the ranking belongs to Kurosu Tokia with 3,000 points. With a confident look, the hero declares that he himself is the top-ranked player and faces his friend. Kita is stunned, unable to believe his friend is number 1 in that game. Tokia then reveals his class change card, saying the information will come to him. Without wasting a moment, he activates the card, and a powerful golden aura envelopes him in the hallway. The system announces the class change has been initiated, and a random profession will be selected. The young man explains that every class in the game is powerful, but they require leveling up, and the cards are rare. He knows classes are weak at first but possess infinite potential over time. One of the 3 supreme classes is the messenger of the 4 elements, who commands the powers of nature. The second is the descendant of the black flame dragon, who transforms into a giant, powerful dragon, and the last is the seeker of time, who manipulates the timeline and wields time travel powers. Amidst countless data screens, the protagonist wonders which new class he will be assigned. A screen appears in a bright flash of light, revealing the name of his new class, Master of Principles. The hero is completely shocked. Even in his past life, he had never heard of this class. The screen then shows that his new class has a passive skill resonance with tools. The class's skill tree is revealed, and the young man notices many unknown tiers. He's surprised, as normal classes only have 3 tiers. This one will be incredibly hard to evolve. With an excited smile, he thinks that if he reaches the end, he'll gain unbelievable power. His friend comments that he's apparently the first person in the world to get a class change in the game. Kita then gets desperate, calling the protagonist its name, not knowing what to do. The hero asks what's wrong, and his friend throws himself on the floor, begging for help. With a pleading expression, he begs his friend to carry him and help him get stronger. Suddenly, a nurse appears in the hallway and asks if she's interrupting something. The protagonist looks at her, remembering how much trouble he had with bills in his past life. She then informs him that the hospital payments are over a month late and the money is needed. His friend offers his card to help, but the hero refuses, saying he'll take care of it. He reflects that in his past life, he managed this by working as a bodyguard, using his physical strength. With determination, he says he's depended on his mother too much, but now he'll handle things himself. The nurse apologizes and steps away to take an important call. With a confused expression, she answers the phone, trying to process the information she's receiving. Shocked by the news, the woman stammers, asking if what she heard is really true. With a huge smile, she announces that someone has paid off all the hospital's debts at once. She then points at the protagonist's friend and says that even the bald guy's part was covered. The young man gets annoyed at the nickname, clarifying that he's not a patient and is just visiting his friend. The two look at each other in silence, and the protagonist points to room 226. At that moment, a blonde man and his 2 companions appear in the hallway and approach them. The man asks with an air of superiority where he can find Kurosu Tokia in this hospital. The protagonist and his friend are confused, wondering who these strange people are. The man asks if they are friends of Kurosu and requests they pass on an important message. With a smirk, the protagonist thinks that the big players of Prison Day have arrived early. His friend then asks what they want with Tokia, eyeing them suspiciously. Kita analyzes their clothes and realizes they seem to be very important individuals. He then wonders if they've come for his friend, because he's the world's number 1. His friend reflects on the money they paid, imagining how much a lifetime of expenses would cost. The nurse then whispers to the protagonist that those were the people who paid the bills. The hero calmly replies that he already knows, leaving the woman a bit confused by his reaction. Without missing a beat, the young man introduces himself to the group as Kurosu Tokia. The blonde man is impressed that he remains expressionless in their presence, and that he's so young. The protagonist knows these people are influential in various fields and analyzes them carefully. The blonde man is Sumulsho, head of a major corporation and a rising star in politics. The one in the suit is Kadoichi, CEO of a tech company with strong ties to the military. The woman is Urara, president of the X Group, which holds vast energy resources and global influence. The group's leader says it's an honor to meet him and prepares for a formal introduction. But the protagonist cuts him off, stating he already knows who they are and tells them to get to the point. The blonde man is surprised by the young man's audacity, not expecting such an attitude. The man in the suit thinks the world's number 1 player is indeed as impressive as the rumors suggest. The woman smiles, thinking the hero is a much more interesting person than she imagined. The woman then invites him to move to another location, as they have prepared a special room for their talk. But the protagonist refuses the offer, telling them to talk right there in the hospital waiting room. The two men exchange a brief glance, a silent acknowledgement that they understood the young man's message. The group's leader agrees, and they all move to the waiting room to begin their discussion. The woman smiles, thinking he's doing this to maintain the upper hand in the negotiation. The nurse and his friend are shocked, unable to believe he could barely pay his bills moments ago. The hero then calls his friend, asking him to bring the strategy guide he gave him earlier. Kita sheepishly scratches his head, asking if it's really necessary for him to fetch that guide. With a guilty expression, he confesses that he thought it was a joke and threw the guide away. Desperate, his friend runs down the hall, saying he'll retrieve the guide right now. The protagonist is annoyed, thinking this is why neither he nor his mother received any rewards. The woman then curiously asks about this strategy guide he mentioned. He calmly replies that it's the strategy guide for the game's beginner dungeons. The three are stunned, telling him to stop joking, as the game has barely started. With a smirk, he says that whether it's true or not, his friend will soon find out. The nurse is startled by several men in suits standing at the door and asks who they are. The blonde man reads the guide and is shocked to see it describes the exact dungeon he experienced. The other two also confirm that their dungeons are detailed in there, down to the last detail. The protagonist's friend asks if it was all true, and he confirms with a smile. Kita then laments that he missed a huge opportunity to get ahead and feels incredibly frustrated. The group's leader apologizes, admitting his power exceeds their imagination and that they are not qualified. The protagonist crosses his arms and, with a smile, asks what else they have to say. The woman comments that with such a guide, it's as if he can predict everything that will happen in the game. With a smirk, he confirms that's exactly the case and that he knows everything. He reflects that in his past life, survivors posted the details online, and he memorized everything. All that past effort is now paying off, serving as his trump card against the dark gods. He then leans forward and asks directly what they want from him now. The group of powerful individuals exchanges a look before answering his question. The three bow respectfully, asking the young man to become their advisor. The blonde man admits that the feeling of walking a tightrope in the dungeon was truly terrifying. The man in the suit believes that with the hero's help, they won't have to face that situation again. The woman adds that they will be forced to return to the game, and they don't want to do poorly. Kita watches the entire negotiation in silence as his friend takes control. Therefore, the group's leader declares with determination that they will accept any condition he imposes. With a casual air, the protagonist says he doesn't mind becoming their advisor. His friend's eyes sparkle with excitement, thinking his partner is incredibly cool. He then reflects that his friend's family is poor, and what they need most is money. The young man already imagines himself swimming in cash and going on a shopping spree with his best friend, but the protagonist cuts him off, stating he has 3 conditions for accepting their offer. His buddy swells with pride, thinking that as expected, his friend is a true master of negotiation. The group's leader says that even 30 or 300 conditions would be fine, but the hero surprises him. His friend is shocked, lamenting that he didn't ask for more when he had the chance. The protagonist's first condition is to publicly release the strategy guide for everyone. The group's leader is surprised, asking if he's really going to give away something that could save lives for free. The man in the suit agrees, stating that the value of that guide is beyond anyone's imagination. The woman comments that this just proves how dangerous the game really is for everyone. The hero then looks at them and asks if he didn't just show them the guide for free. The group is speechless at his response, realizing he has a valid point. He then explains that his goals differ from theirs. He wants to save more people. With a serious look, the protagonist warns that if they don't accept, the discussion ends here. They realize the young man is serious, and the woman admires him for not being swayed by profit. The three then bow again, promising to fulfill the first condition immediately. The second condition is to establish a player management agency with very clear rules. The blonde man smiles, assuring him they can relax as they were already planning to do just that. He then prepares to announce his final, and perhaps most important, condition for the deal. The group tenses up, wondering if the last condition is something even they can't fulfill. His friend then yells at the protagonist to ask for money, calling it his last wish, but the hero ignores him and says he wants a house, so he and his mother no longer have to live in the hospital. He looks at his mother in her bed, saying he just wants her to live a normal, peaceful life. The three are bewildered by the simple request, and his friend facepalms in frustration. The protagonist adds that, if it's too difficult, he can withdraw the request, as he doesn't like the feeling of begging. The group pleads with him not to withdraw, insisting that preparing a house for him is an easy task. task. With a smirk, the protagonist tells them not to get so worked up over his request. The leader apologizes for the scene, and the other two just laugh sheepishly at the situation. They think that of all the conditions, this is the easiest and the one that will most increase his favor towards them. He then ends the matter, saying he needs to go back to his room as he has other things to attend to. The hero warns that the countdown to the next prison day will begin soon. The three are shocked by this information, asking if what he said is really true. At that moment, a 3-day countdown appears before them, proving the young man was right. He then informs them that as soon as they fulfill the second condition, he will provide the strategy for the next dungeon. The three bow respectfully, saying they will do as he commands without question. The protagonist then turns and heads back to his hospital room to rest. The powerful group watches the young man leave, preparing to carry out his orders. One of the security guards informs them that someone wishes to meet with the protagonist. The man in the suit gets annoyed, telling him not to bother the protagonist and to have the person wait outside, but the security guard stammers, asking if the young woman who arrived is the girlfriend of the young man in the room. The group is surprised by the question and turns to see who this person is. Kita then freaks out, saying the girl is Mr. Kurosa's person and that they make a great couple. With a look of betrayal, he grabs the man in the suit, demanding to know how Tokia got a girlfriend. But the young woman cuts in, telling him not to say things that cause misunderstandings, as that's not the case. Her friend ignores her, continuing his dramatic display, insisting he won't let her pass. One of the women from the group glares at the girl with contempt, commenting that it's been a while. The protagonist then recognizes the girl and says with a serious look that so it was her all along. With a wicked grin, the young woman remembers how she rejected and humiliated him in front of everyone in the past. He thinks that he never had feelings for her, but now she has also become a player. The girl approaches with a bouquet of flowers, saying she's sorry for what happened in the past. The powerful group senses the hero's genuine hatred for the woman and decides to wait before intervening. His friend explodes, accusing her of insulting the protagonist in front of the whole school. She claims she was young and foolish and now deeply regrets her actions from back then. But the young man cuts her off, saying she only came crawling back because she saw his name on the ranking. The young woman is speechless at the accusation as the others glare at her with disdain. The woman from the group realizes the girl is just an opportunist and sizes her up with a single glance. The girl tries to defend herself, pleading for him not to let her go down alone in the dangerous game. His friend gets furious, shouting that she didn't just reject him, she insulted and humiliated him. The protagonist calms him down, reminding him they're in a hospital and need to leave. Before leaving, he looks at the girl and states that for the record, he never liked her, not for a second. She panics, saying that if he saves her, she'll even let him be her boyfriend, and whatever else he wants. The girl runs after him, promising she'll never leave his side if he helps her, but as she reaches the door, she's blocked by two huge security guards who stare at her sternly. The two men in suits and sunglasses won't let her pass, looking down at her with an intimidating glare. Unrelenting, she claims to be Tokia's girlfriend and demands they let her through immediately. The woman from the group then comments that it doesn't seem like Mr. Kurosu wants anything to do with her. The group's leader then orders the guards to escort her out, and they obey instantly. His friend celebrates, asking if getting rid of her wasn't good for the protagonist. With a serious expression, the hero thinks that based on his memories, she should be in the hospital now. He then walks to his mother's room door, preparing for the reunion he's been waiting for. With a swift motion, he opens the door and finally finds the person he was looking for. A beautiful girl with white hair and red eyes looks at him with a gentle gaze and a smile. The girl is so beautiful she seems to glow, and the protagonist stares back at her. His mother then informs him that Eureka is here to see him again and has been waiting for his return. With a smile, he says it's been a long time since he's seen her and greets her with a wave. The young woman is confused, saying she was there last week and that it hasn't been that long. The protagonist then remembers her passing away in his arms in his past life and gets emotional. He hugs her tightly, vowing that in this life, he won't let a single person he loves go down. The girl is completely flustered by the hug, while his mother just laughs at the cute scene. His friend is confused, wondering if the two are really just friends, as it seems suspicious. Later that night, the full moon lights up the sky, and the hospital room is quiet. The protagonist watches his mother sleeping peacefully, feeling relieved that she's okay. He thinks that the hospital moved them to a VIP room, and that those people really have influence. The system then displays the remaining time for the next dungeon: 63 hours. With the countdown before him, he knows the next dungeon should follow the same pattern as his past life. He reflects that he gained a skill called Skill Maintenance, which activates upon touch. To test it, the young man places his hand on the edge of the bed to see what his new skill does. pause, a wave of blue energy spreads through the room, and the protagonist is surprised by its power. He realizes he can see the minute details of any object he's currently touching. With his enhanced vision, he notices the second screw on the bed's left leg is loose. The hero thinks it's a shame he has no weapons in the hospital, as he wanted to test the skill on them. Suddenly, a mysterious voice echoes in his mind, saying he is qualified to participate. He asks who the entity is and what he's qualified for. Not understanding the situation, the voice replies that he will know who it is in due time, but for now, he must make a decision. A dark silhouette appears, telling him to decide whether he will accept its special test. With his eyes glowing, he realizes this being has the power to help him defeat the god. Without hesitation, the protagonist accepts the test and tells the entity to start the challenge immediately. The entity gives a sinister smile, says very well, and declares the test will begin now, but it warns him that if he fails to clear the test, he can never return to this world again. The young man is then pulled into a vortex of blue energy, surprised by its sacred power. He wonders what reward he'll receive for clearing this mysterious test from the dark entity. A tornado of blue energy forms, and the system announces the beginning of the trial grounds. A spike of blue ice emerges from the ground, preparing to attack our protagonist in the test. He dodges the attack with a jump, preparing for the challenge the entity has set up. With a focused and determined look, the hero faces the trial grounds, ready for whatever comes. He finds himself before a dark palace, wondering what this place is. In the middle of nowhere, blue energy begins to form in front of him, and he stares at the manifestation with curiosity. The entity then explains the rule is simple: he must defeat the opponent within 10 minutes. It also advises him that all-seeing wisdom is the only way to win the challenge. The protagonist looks at the entity with a serious expression, preparing for the imminent combat. The entity then announces the start of the test, and a female figure begins to materialize. A blind, invulnerable swordsman appears, and the 10-minute countdown for the test begins. The young man stares at the skeleton inside the armor, wondering if that is his opponent. With a smile, he finds the battle between the strongest player and the strongest swordsman intriguing. A blue sword is granted to him, descending from the heavens in a beam of light for the combat. The hero wields the weapon, commenting that it's perfect as he wanted to use his new skill anyway, but the system informs him that resonance cannot be activated because the target is not physical. He then realizes the skill only works on physical entities and that the sword is an illusion. With a determined look, he declares he won't waste any more time and will clear the test at once. The swordsman charges, and the protagonist challenges it to show him the power of the strongest swordsman. With a smile, he praises the opponent's skill as they exchange sword blows. The enemy attacks with a spinning slash, but the hero manages to defend with his blue sword. He notes that despite the large sword, the opponent's movements are incredibly fast. The blind swordsman continues its attack with a relentless series of swift and powerful strikes. The protagonist then wonders if this fast and powerful attack is its final move. The swordsman attacks with full force, but the protagonist manages to dodge and counter with precision. He comments that the move is amazing, but that the opponent's guard was left wide open during the attack. He then wonders if the swordsman is also an illusion, just like the sword he's using. Therefore, he says he won't feel bad about finishing it off and continues his attack. The young man thinks the wound he inflicted should have been fatal, but the opponent seems to feel nothing. He then realizes it had no effect and that the strongest swordsman truly cannot be harmed. The protagonist finally understands the meaning of his opponent's title: no one can defeat it. With only 5 minutes left, he wonders what he must do to win. He continues to evade the swordsman's attacks while trying to devise an effective strategy. The hero remembers the entity's hint, realizing it must mean something important. Amidst one of the attacks, he notices a skull attached to the swordsman's hair and is surprised. He realizes the opponent is protecting the skull and that it must be its weak point. With that, the young man understands that the swordsman's oath is to protect the person behind it. He then gets an idea and prepares to put his new plan into action to win the challenge. The entity states that a technique of this caliber is unworthy of receiving its special blessing. With a wicked smile, it claims that no matter what swordsmanship he uses, he cannot win. The protagonist then leaps over his opponent, preparing to attack the skull directly. The swordsman turns in shock, realizing the young man's strategy, and tries to defend itself. The entity is surprised by the hero's boldness, not expecting such a move. The young man then shouts for the swordsman to open its eyes and see the person it's protecting. The swordsman turns and faces the skull it was protecting on its back the whole time. Upon seeing the skull, it lets out a cry of pain and despair, and its body begins to disintegrate. It clutches the skeleton and weeps in sorrow as its body turns to dust and flames. With only 51 seconds left, the protagonist watches his opponent vanish. He says the answer was in the hint. He needed to make the enemy realize the truth. The young man understands that the sword he received was just a distraction for the test. He then faces the mist and challenges the entity to show itself, as he has solved the mystery. The entity congratulates him, commenting that the simplest truth is often the hardest to see. It praises him for succeeding and declares him worthy of receiving its true blessing. The protagonist looks at the the entity, wondering what kind of power he will receive as a reward. An intense blue energy completely envelops him, and his body begins to absorb the new power. The entity then smiles, saying the real test begins now with the newly received blessing. The hero is confused, wondering what it means, but there's still a test ahead. The voice then instructs him to feel the emotions of all living beings to accept the power of a god. He then experiences the pain, joy, anger, and sorrow of countless souls at once. Overwhelmed by the emotions, a glass barrier shatters, and he is thrown into a new location. The young man lands amidst a sea of skulls and suffering faces. Not understanding what is happening, he realizes that the power of a god consists of the faith and emotions of those living on earth. Looking at the suffering souls, he understands that this is truly a tremendous power. With his face bruised and bleeding, he faces the new challenge with a serious and determined look. With a confident smile, he says that with this power, he can finally confront the god. He then declares that the gods of earth will have his support to oppose the evil god. The entity states that this is the final test and that no human can withstand such power. An explosion of energy occurs, and the protagonist is engulfed in an intense, blinding light. The entity is surprised by what happens, unable to comprehend how the young man is still standing. The hero stands up amidst the rubble, admitting it is truly impossible to bear. With a smirk, he asks if that's all the entity can throw at him. The voice congratulates him, saying that as expected, he is the human they acknowledged and is deserving. It says he has obtained their blessing and must remember their name for the future. The entity promises that when he is recognized by them, he will obtain the true supreme blessing. The protagonist is confused by the mention of a supreme blessing and the entity's name. He tries to ask for the voice's name, but it vanishes amidst bright, white feathers. Back in his hospital bed, he wakes up panting, wondering what blessing he received. At that moment, a system screen appears before him, and he stares at it with a serious and curious look. The screen reveals he has gained the mental guardian's blessing, and his patron is the seraph Gabriel. With a satisfied smile, he thinks the new blessing will be very useful in future battles. But for now, he is more excited about the supreme blessing that Gabriel mentioned in the test. He then realizes that the mental illness that plagued him was actually the gods of earth. With a determined look, he glances at the 23-hour countdown for the dungeon. His friend then bursts into the room, shocked, saying there's even a video version of the guide. The protagonist lightly taps his friend on the head, telling him to make less noise in a hospital. His friend says he was moved by the video and that the production was simply amazing. His mother smiles, commenting that the two really get along well like good friends. The hero thinks that the group acted fast and that the guide video is already circulating everywhere. He also sees that they cooperated with the government and established the management agency. Looking at the ranking, he thinks this could serve as a catalyst for other players. Suddenly, the nurse informs him that a car has arrived to pick him up outside. His friend rushes to the window, confirming that the powerful group has indeed come to get his partner. With his eyes sparkling with excitement, he yells that it's true and that the scene is impressive. Outside, a limousine and several black cars with security guards await the protagonist. The woman from the group asks the young man to inform the hero that she has come personally to pick him up. His friend rushes into the room, announcing that the three have come to get him from the hospital. The protagonist then stands up, says he understands, and that he'll be down to meet them shortly. His mother worries, asking him not to get involved in any crime. He reassures her, telling her not to worry as he hasn't done anything wrong. With a smile, he says he's actually saving the world, which leaves her quite confused. With a serious look, he states that eventually, everyone will know the truth and says goodbye. The group's leader takes him to a mansion, highlighting the organic food and beautiful scenery. He also informs him that for his safety, guards and maids will be on duty 24 hours a day. His friend is shocked by the luxury, wondering how much a house like that must cost. The man clarifies that the property is his and therefore cannot be found on the market. His friend freaks out, asking if that means the house is unique and one of a kind in the world. The protagonist ignores him and asks the man to show him the other places he has to offer. The other two from the group watch from a distance, preparing their next offer. The man in the suit comments that it was a rejection, and the woman declares that she will be the one to win. With a confident smile, he says the house he selected is something no young man can refuse. He then takes them to a skyscraper, stating that a place like this is perfect for the young man. His friend is amazed by the view, yelling that you can see the entire city from up there. The man explains that the building is in the city center and was designed by a famous architect. With a victorious smile, he announces that the largest penthouse suite is already prepared for him. The protagonist's friend is shocked to learn that there are other things prepared for them. The man then snaps his fingers, summoning the surprises he has prepared. With that, several beautiful maids appear, introducing themselves to the hero as his new servants. His friend's eyes turn into hearts as he exclaims at the sight of so many divine beauties. The maids surround him, saying he can ask for anything he wants and that he's very cool. The other two from the group are shocked, wondering why they didn't think of this before. The man then smiles, thinking that no man in the world could refuse such an offer, but the protagonist looks at him coldly coldly and simply tells him to show the next option. The man in the suit is stunned, unable to believe the young man refused such an offer. The woman then smiles, realizing that Mr. Kurosu is truly different from everyone else. The blonde man thinks this means he still has a chance to impress the young man. The woman then invites him to come with her, saying the place she chose is not luxurious. She reveals that she had someone investigate his mother's past and takes him to a special location. Upon arriving, she asks if he's familiar with the place, looking at him with a gentle smile. His friend recognizes the place, saying it's the house where the protagonist lived as a child. The other two are shocked, realizing the game is over for them with this move. The woman explains that the house has changed owners many times and the layout is different now, but she says she tried to restore everything as much as possible to make him feel comfortable and at ease. The hero is moved, saying it's amazing and that the house is almost identical to his memories. With a sincere smile, he thanks her for the gesture, and the woman is happy that he liked it. The two men look dejected, unable to believe they lost so perfectly. The protagonist then calls his friend, asking him to bring the guide for the next dungeon. The woman is surprised, asking what that is that the young man is pulling from inside his pants. The friend explains that the hero wrote the complete strategy for the second dungeon of the game. She is shocked that something so precious was kept in such a place. The woman then asks if he's also going to release this new strategy publicly, but he replies no, saying they can distribute it to players they deem promising. He explains that to become stronger, one must understand the game, not rely on luck. The protagonist says that those who did well by luck won't last long and will be eliminated. To select excellent players, they just need to help newbies adapt. He continues, saying that if they are truly excellent, they will naturally stand out on their own. The woman then understands the plan and asks what he intends to do by selecting these players. With a determined look, the hero replies that he wants them to save and protect the world by his side. The group is shocked by the young man's ambition, thinking it's a very grand dream. With the countdown approaching, his friend announces that they are ready to go. The protagonist then says goodbye to his mother with a hug, promising to be home soon. His friend strikes a pose, declaring he's off on an adventure to another world. His mother is confused by the scene, not quite understanding what's happening with the two. The countdown hits 0, and the system announces the selected players will be transported. The two are then enveloped in a blue light, saying goodbye to the protagonist's mother in the room. The hero informs his friend that he should be able to clear the dungeon on his own, as they will act separately. The young man then says he'll be keeping an eye on the ranking, determined to get on it this time. With a confident smile, the protagonist faces the new dungeon, ready for another challenge. He realizes, just like in his past life, the second dungeon is the D-class icy mansion. The system announces that the scenario creation is complete and the players' souls have been loaded. The protagonist thinks that as expected, they are being missiled by the instructions again. He knows that to clear the dungeon, he must form a team with someone he completely trusts. The real condition is to lure the two bosses from different floors to meet in the middle. But he sadly remembers the moment he was betrayed in his past life by an ally. With a determined look, he summons a golden card, calling for the person he trusts most. The special team formation card is activated, and an intense golden glow fills the room. The white-haired girl then appears amidst light particles and looks at the protagonist. The two stare at each other in silence, and the young woman is surprised to see him there. Shocked, she asks why he is there and where they are. Not understanding the situation, he explains that he was the one who invited her to the dungeon and that she was on an island before. The hero thinks that Eureka became a player in the second game and suffered greatly because of it. He remembers how she was forced to survive on the island, suffering for the rest of her life with the scars. That's why he says he called her to change her fate and ensure she doesn't get hurt again. The girl is shocked, asking how he knew she was on the island without her telling him. At that moment, the same blue system window appears before her, and she looks at it with curiosity. The screen welcomes her, informing her that she is in the D-class dungeon, the Icy Mansion. She then remembers the videos she saw online and wonders about the name of that game. The protagonist replies that the game is called Prison Day, and she confirms that's the one. He explains that he needed a partner he could trust his life with, which is why he chose her. With the door about to open, he invites her to be his partner and face the dangers together. The young woman then remembers when he invited her to play in the past, and looks at him tenderly. Back then, she was lonely and sad, but the young man reached out and invited her to play. He repeats the invitation, asking if she wants to play with him again like in the old days. The girl looks at him with eyes full of emotion, remembering the good times they shared. She then holds his hand tightly, accepting the invitation to be his partner once more. With a radiant smile, she says she would love to be his partner and accepts on the spot. He then asks if she memorized everything he said. As the door is about to open, the young woman confirms, saying it's an exploration game and she shouldn't touch anything carelessly. She also knows it's not a mansion but a multi-story labyrinth filled with monsters. To clear it, they must make the top boss meet the bottom boss in the middle. The protagonist confirms and with a serious look, announces he is opening the dungeon door. The white-haired girl says yes and that she will do her best to help him on his journey. With the countdown at 0, he opens the door, and the two enter the icy mansion for the challenge. The hallway is completely frozen, covered in ice and sharp stalactites everywhere. The young woman complains about the cold and the young man comforts her, saying a card will make it more bearable. Suddenly a shadow passes by a door, and the hero prepares for the encounter he was expecting. He thinks that just as he imagined, the traitor from his past life has also appeared in this dungeon. A man with a knife appears, complaining about the cold and wondering if monsters will show up. He then sees them and seems surprised to find other people there. With a smile, he asks if they are also players and approaches with a friendly attitude. The protagonist knows he's going to ask to team up and that he seems like an honest guy, but in reality he's a shameless coward who betrays his own teammates. He remembers how the man would hide behind him during fights because he was weak and cowardly. With a smirk, the protagonist braces himself, knowing exactly what's going to happen next. He remembers that when he used all his strength to defeat a boss, the traitor stabbed him in the back. The young man recalls that the traitor backstabbed him just to steal a skill card. Tukia then reflects that if it weren't for one person, he would have met his end right there on the floor. Back in the present, the traitor suggests they team up to make it easier to face the monsters. But his real plan is to get rid of the hero so he can take advantage of the beautiful girl accompanying him. The man also covets the protagonist's sword, telling himself he will definitely take it. With a fake smile, he extends his hand, saying that in a game like this, they need to cooperate. However, the protagonist retorts that he stabbed him first, and now he's returning the favor with his sword. With no chance to react, the traitor is struck square in the chest, completely shocked by the pain. With a cold look, the hero tells him to experience the same suffering he felt in his past life. The young man then turns to his partner and calmly asks if she has any questions about this. The girl replies no, as she trusts he has a good reason for everything he does. He then invites her to look for some skill cards, and the young woman agrees immediately. With that, the two leave the traitor's body behind and continue their exploration of the icy mansion. Elsewhere, a man in glasses comments that the information about the number 1 ranked player, Kurosu Tokiya, was correct. He wonders if the guy who releases guides for free is worthy of his observation. Shijimori Itsuki, looking at the ranking, the man in glasses thinks he just can't figure out the hero's intentions. Back with the protagonists, they sense a strange presence, certain that a monster is nearby. A monster called the Hanged Man appears, and Eureka shouts a warning that it's coming towards them. With sharp claws and a glowing eye, the creature charges at full force to attack the two players. The girl screams her partner's name, clinging to him tightly as the monster approaches, but the monster doesn't even have time to react before it's hit by a powerful punch that sends it flying. With a bored expression, the protagonist tells the creature that it's too loud and annoying. He then fires a powerful energy beam from his hand that hits the monster head on. The attack pierces the creature's body, causing a large explosion at the end of the hallway. The monster then dissolves into light, leaving behind a stamina card that increases 1 level. Eureka is shocked by how easy it all was, asking if this is how he always fought in the dungeons. The hero replies no, and that this monster was just exceptionally weak and powerless. She gets excited at the idea of stronger monsters, imagining herself in a real horror movie. He then hands her the card, telling her to concentrate to acquire the new skill. The young woman holds the golden card, thinking it's impossible for such a monster to exist in an apartment. With her eyes closed, she focuses on the card, hoping to be able to use its power. A golden light envelopes her, and she is surprised to realize she actually managed to use the card. Her status panel appears, showing her stamina is now successfully at level 1. He praises her for learning quickly and invites her to the next floor of the icy mansion. The girl realizes she doesn't feel as cold anymore and is happy to have acquired the new skill. The young woman then questions how he knows so much about the game, asking if he enjoys playing. The protagonist stops walking and looks at her in silence, leaving the girl confused by his reaction. With a grim expression, he just stares at her without saying a word on the matter. Eureka gets nervous with the silence and asks if she said something strange. The hero states that the game is not interesting at all and reminds her of their true purpose. With a cold and determined look, the protagonist reveals that their purpose is to destroy the game. The girl is silent for a moment, then says that even if she doesn't understand, she trusts his reasons. Suddenly, a monstrous hand bursts through an ice wall, preparing to attack the two. The creature lets out a terrifying roar and charges at full force towards the hero's partner. But with a swift move, the young man steps in front of her to protect her from the monster's attack. Without any difficulty, he stops the creature with a single hand, holding its face firmly. With a squeeze, he crushes the monster's head, which shatters into pieces before him. He then comments that it's a shame she doesn't have a card, as that's the difficulty of this dungeon, but he reveals that the boss of each floor always drops one and invites her to go look for it. Meanwhile, other players are completely lost in the labyrinth, not knowing what to do. Eureka realizes they are not lost and admires how amazing her partner is for knowing the way. He explains that the mansion is not difficult at first and that the temperature drops 1 degree every 5 minutes. However, the temperature continues to drop, and the longer it takes, the harder it becomes for everyone. Furthermore, if they don't find the floor boss, the door to the next level will never open. Eventually, all players will end up frozen and unable to survive. The young woman is terrified at the thought of everyone freezing, but the hero remains calm and focused. He knows the temperature drop rate increases and remembers the boss's location. With that, the two go to find the boss, aiming to take it down as quickly as possible. The man in glasses watches from a distance, wondering about the motive behind the protagonist's actions. He suspects the young man has a special ability and hopes not to be disappointed by the #1 ranker. Deep within the frozen labyrinth, the two continue their journey through the dangerous and icy mansion. The protagonist knows the first floor boss is nearby and considers how to lure it out. Suddenly, a redhead guy appears out of nowhere, calling him by name and surprising the two. With an arrogant tone, the young man demands the hero answer him, as he's speaking directly to him. His partner then asks if he knows the guy, but Tokiya replies that he doesn't. The redhead gets annoyed at being ignored, shouting that they shouldn't underestimate him because he's in the ranking. From a distance, the man in the suit watches the scene, wondering what this new player's rank could be. The protagonist says he has memorized the top 10 and the redhead isn't one of them, so he asks what his rank is. The young man introduces himself as Zhang Shuo, stating he is rank 783 but will become #1. The hero and his partner just stare at him blankly upon hearing his rank. The man in the suit gets annoyed, thinking he just wasted his time worrying about this. Tokiya asks what number 783 wants, and the redhead yells that he came to defeat him. He declares he will show everyone that the protagonist's first place was nothing but a lucky fluke. But before he can act, the hero lands a casual punch right in his face. The force of the single blow knocks the redhead and his friends back onto the ground. With a bored look, the protagonist tells him to get lost, as he's very busy. The redhead then pulls out a knife, stating he didn't give the hero permission to leave. His friends cheer him on, and the young man says his only target is the hero. The girl is on them. With his face bruised, he yells that he'll return the punch 100 times stronger. Tokiya thinks they are just idiots, not truly bad people, and decides to teach them a lesson. With a powerful kick, the protagonist breaks a metal door and grabs a pipe to use as a weapon. He then grips the makeshift object tightly, preparing for the fight against the troublemakers. With a smirk, he says he will punish them all with this simple metal pipe. The hero thinks this is perfect, as he needs to lure out the floor boss somehow. He then decides to test his new class skill and activates resonance with tools. The system reveals the pipe is useless junk, but notes that its resonance can increase with use. The young man finds it interesting that the skill can evaluate weapons and decides to use it often. The redhead glares at him, saying he's overestimating himself and will regret not using his sword. Unfazed, the protagonist just stares at the group of troublemakers with a look of contempt. The leader then furiously yells for all his friends to charge and attack the hero at once. However, his friends are scared and push him forward, telling him to go first. Annoyed by their cowardice, the redhead yells at his useless friends to attack without hesitation, but one of them reminds him that the protagonist is the world's #1 and they don't stand a chance. The leader yells that he doesn't care and will only be satisfied if he can defeat the hero. With his knife ready, he charges, yelling that it doesn't matter if the young man is rank 1, because he is nothing. But with a bored look, the protagonist thinks he will use their screams to attract the boss. Effortlessly, he hits the redhead with the metal pipe, telling him to use his brain more. With his face contorted in pain, the young man is speechless at the force of the blow. He then falls to his knees, screaming in agony, and everyone is shocked by the scene. The hero then comments that it was a good scream, and that the boss must have heard it. Suddenly, a green tentacle appears out of nowhere and lunges at high speed towards the group. The tentacle wraps around the redhead's body, squeezing him tightly and leaving him desperate. With that, the young man is dragged away by the creature with no chance of escape. His friends panic, yelling for someone to run and save their leader. Eureka then asks the protagonist what that thing was that just appeared. He replies that it's the floor boss, and that defeating it will open the way to the next level. With that, the hero invites her to follow him, saying there's no need to rush. The young woman is shocked by his speed, wondering if this is the power of a player. She then imagines herself as a superhero, excited at the idea of gaining powers. From a distance, the man in glasses admires him, wondering if he came all this way to hunt the boss. The man in the suit then decides he must somehow become his teammate. Meanwhile, the redhead's friends yell at the monster to let go of their boss, who is being crushed. They continue to scream desperately for the creature to stop its attack and free their friend. One of them even threatens the unknown creature, saying he'll finish it off. With that, one of the friends charges forward to try and save their leader from the monster's grasp. But the monster attacks all of them at once, sending them flying with a single blow. At that moment, the floor boss reveals itself as a mutant E+ rank carnivorous plant with high stats. The redhead is then pulled into the monster's mouth, screaming desperately for help. From inside the plant's mouth, the young man sees the protagonist calmly approaching. The hero then faces the boss with his sword drawn, ready for the floor's final combat. The redhead despairs, wondering if the protagonist will really save him after all. Without a second thought, the hero charges with his sword and slices the plant's tentacles. With a single powerful and precise blow, he unleashes a slash of blue energy at the monster. The creature lets out a cry of pain as it's completely split in half by the young man's attack. The redhead finds himself free, shocked to have been saved by his rival, but he realizes the feeling of being saved is more painful than being defeated. The hero then tells him to get up, saying that if he wants to reach the top 10, he'll fight with his sword. The protagonist challenges him to reach the top 10 so they can fight as equals. The redhead remains silent for a moment, processing the words of his newly saved rival. With determination, he promises he will definitely get there and thanks him for saving him. With the boss defeated, the passage to the next floor opens, presenting two options. To go up, they must fight mutant monsters. To go down, they must face scary ghosts. The hero's partner finally catches up to him, and the system warns they have little time. The young woman despairs, asking which of the two terrifying paths they should choose. The redhead looks at her, noting that although both paths are scary, she seems excited. The girl is thrilled at the idea of monsters and ghosts, saying both options are great. With a smile, she gets excited about the choices and wonders if the protagonist thinks she's weird. He then looks at her seriously, asking which of the two options she really wants to choose. The young woman panics, realizing she simply can't decide between the two. Suddenly, the man in glasses appears, asking to join their group on the journey. The man introduces himself as Mori Shigeruki, rank 34 in the world, and says he can be useful. The protagonist comments that he finally showed himself, and his partner is shocked by his high rank. The redhead then scoffs at his rank, declaring that he will surely be a future top 10 player. The hero reveals that he noticed he was being followed but decided to let it go. He then remembers that in his past life, the man in glasses saved him when he needed it most. Shigeruki is surprised to have been noticed by the young man and looks at him with curiosity. The protagonist remembers how he was betrayed and thought he would perish at the hands of his former ally, but he was saved by the man in glasses, who said his skill was too good to be wasted. With his glasses glinting, he promised that if the hero followed his orders, he would let him clear the dungeon. And that's how the protagonist managed to clear the dungeon step by step with his help. Back then, the man in glasses was a true savior to him amidst all the chaos. However, even someone as capable as him ended up losing his life in that cruel and deadly game. At that moment, the young man learned that it doesn't matter how strong someone is to the dark gods. All players are nothing more than simple toys for the amusement of evil entities. Back in the present, the man in glasses asks if something is wrong with the protagonist. The redhead then wonders why the world's #1 would bother with a mere rank 34, but the hero says strong people are welcome and that he needed a fierce warrior like him. He then offers some cards as a small token of appreciation, but the man in glasses refuses. The protagonist thinks that since he helped him in the past, it's now his turn to return the favor. With a smile, Shigeruki says that Mr. Kurosu is indeed very strong and accepts the cards. With a smile, the man in glasses offers the cards to the protagonist's partner. The young woman gets incredibly excited, saying that with these, she can also become a superhero, but she hesitates, looking to her friend for his approval before taking the cards. He then tells her to do whatever she wants, as she needs the cards to get stronger. With a radiant smile, the girl says thank you and takes the cards from her new teammate. Shigeruki says he's the one who should be grateful, thinking that now he can trust them a little. He then decides he will think of a gift for the protagonist when they return to reality. The hero warns that the next floor's boss is stronger and they can't waste time. The two new teammates agree and prepare to follow the protagonist's lead. The redhead gets excited, thinking that if even 4 eyes can join, then he surely can too. He declares himself a genius and prepares to ask to join the #1 player's group. With his hand raised, he asks to join the group and fight alongside them in the dungeon. But with with a cold, direct look, the protagonist tells him to get out of his sight. The redhead is completely speechless, unable to believe he was rejected so bluntly. Shigeruki then asks if the hero is familiar with this dungeon, and he replies that its structure is simple. He explains that the mansion has 7 floors and that they were on the 4th floor until now. The man in glasses is surprised and asks if he also knows the final boss's weakness. The protagonist reveals there are 2 final bosses, and they cannot be defeated by normal means. The only way to clear the dungeon is to make the lower floor boss meet the upper floor one. Shocked by this information, Shigeruki realizes they would need to split into 2 groups. But the protagonist reveals his plan: attack the lower floor first, and then rush up. He explains that this strategy allows them to make the 2 bosses meet while minimizing risk. The man in glasses is impressed, commenting that this is a strategy only Tokiya could execute. Eureka then realizes his initial plan was to lure both bosses and face the final one alone. The hero confirms this but says he switched to a lower risk option because her safety is more important. With a smile, the young woman thanks him, saying he's very kind for worrying about her. Suddenly, she sneezes, complaining about the intense cold on this floor of the mansion. The girl complains she's freezing despite her increased stats, and her panel appears. The protagonist explains that the temperature here drops almost twice as fast as on the 1st floor. They agree to defeat the boss as quickly as possible to move on. Suddenly, a glowing blue eye opens in the darkness, watching the group of players. The floor boss emerges, a massive white wolf with powerful, glowing blue eyes. Along with it, a horde of ghosts with glowing purple eyes appears, ready to attack the group. Shigeruki wonders how the hero found the boss so quickly in such a vast labyrinth. The protagonist replies that this is a route he learned with his life on the line and that he would never forget it. The man in glasses is stunned, wondering if the young man has been here before, even before the game. The floor boss reveals itself as a D rank hound with very high power and speed stats. The hero warns that they are coming and tells the other 2 to focus on protecting themselves. Shigeruki reassures him, promising to protect Eureka with his life. With that, the protagonist feels more at ease, knowing his partner will be safe during the battle. With his sword glowing blue, the protagonist charges with all his might against the massive white wolf. He challenges the creature to combat, and the monster lets out a furious roar in response. Without wasting a moment, the hero lands a precise and powerful blow on the giant wolf's head. Meanwhile, the ghosts with glowing purple eyes roar and charge to attack. Shigeruki acts quickly, positioning himself in front of Eureka to protect her from the monsters. With swift and precise movements, he begins to fight the ghosts using martial arts. He reveals himself as the 9th successor of Bagwojang, declaring the ghosts are no match for him. With a confident smile, he tells Eureka not to worry, as he will take care of everything quickly, but the girl surprises everyone by landing a powerful punch on one of the ghosts with ease. She gets incredibly excited upon realizing she can also defeat the monsters with her new strength, and the man in glasses is surprised, thinking she is also full of mysteries. Just like Tokiya, back with the protagonist, he's fighting the boss. The monster then attacks him, and Tokiya narrowly dodges. While moving quickly, the protagonist notices a clear opening on the creature's back, but instead of finishing it, he delivers only quick, shallow cuts, intentionally avoiding vital points. Seeing this, Shigeruki realizes the hero has had several chances to take down the boss, but has purposely hesitated. Confused, he questions why Tokiya doesn't just end it, since they need to take out the boss to descend. After all, the temperature in the room continues to drop drastically, and if they delay, they'll all end up frozen. He then starts trying to guess what on earth our protagonist is thinking. The wolf continues its ferocious attacks while our protagonist just dodges. The hero knows that taking down the beast now would leave the lower floor boss in a state of total rage. His real goal is to reduce the monster's health to exactly 1% to activate the hidden story. Noticing the built-up energy, Shigeruki shouts a warning that the boss is about to use its final attack and calls for cover. The wolf then unleashes the wind's roar, firing a devastating blast of energy. But Tokiya jumps in front of the attack, yelling for Shigeruki to protect Eureka and save himself while he blocks. Shigeruki is stunned, watching the protagonist face the ultimate blow head on without flinching. He decides to trust his leader's orders and runs at full speed, vowing absolute loyalty to his new master. He points to a safe corner, shouting for Eureka to follow him immediately to take cover. At that moment, a devastating gust of wind sweeps through the spot where the protagonist was. The force of the attack is so overwhelming that it hits everyone who was in that room. Hiding in the corner, Eureka breathes a sigh of relief, thanking our protagonist for the timely warning. But she immediately panics, yelling that Tokiya is still out there and tries to run back into the storm to find him. However, Shigeruki grabs her her by the arm, stopping her from committing suicide and reminding her of the leader's orders, and he insists they must stay there and trust the protagonist. The deafening sound of the wind finally begins to subside, leaving only a cloud of smoke and ice covering the entrance. Seeing the storm has passed, Eureka suggests they take a look, but Shigeruki says no, as he hasn't called for them yet. Suddenly, a familiar voice cuts through the silence, calmly saying the two can come out of hiding now. Without wasting another second, the two rush out from their cover, worried about the protagonist. As they emerge, they find the hallway destroyed and call out the young man's name in concern. With that, Shigeruki is completely shocked by the scene before him, and Eureka's eyes also widen, unable to believe what happened there. The protagonist had defeated the boss and left it with just 1% of its health. The girl praises the hero, saying it was incredible, and Shigeruki admits he worried for nothing. With his sword in hand, Tokiya says it's now time to activate the secret side mission. With this, Shigeruki realizes Tokiya purposely didn't defeat the monster to activate the mission, and Eureka gets excited at the idea of a secret mission. The protagonist then turns to the wolf, saying he can take it to its master and asks if it wants to come with him. The wolf is immediately surprised by the offer, and then it starts to howl, excited by the proposal. With that, the creature sends a team request, and the protagonist accepts it immediately. A notification confirms the secret mission has begun, and recruiting both bosses will grant a 50% bonus. A second screen appears, confirming the boss's defeat and displaying the player's rewards. The protagonist also receives a D rank item card, a storage ring that cannot hold living beings. With the new attribute cards in hand, the young man prepares to boost his stats. His strength stats are now at level 11, and the rest are at level 10. Without wasting time, the protagonist activates the cards he got in his hand. With that, his strength stats rise to 13, and his stamina to 12. He then looks at the storage ring card he won in the battle. The hero thinks the ring will be useful in the future, and places it on his finger. Suddenly, the giant wolf he faced appears, barking in its small form. The protagonist then wonders if that's the monster's true form. Eureka finds the little wolf very cute and asks if it's really the boss from before. The young man jokes that he can make it return to its original form, which scares her. The terrifying image of the giant wolf appears, leaving the girl paralyzed with fear. He says he was just kidding, and she wonders if all the bosses are cute little creatures. Shigeruki reflects on this and says the game's creator is a monster if that's true. Tokiya confirms and warns that they will see much more of this game's dark side. Eureka then understands why the protagonist's sole purpose is to destroy this cruel game. With the floor cleared, the passage to the next level finally opens for the group, but suddenly, a strange and mysterious sound echoes from the top of the dark staircase. The girl identifies the sound as a cat's meow, but Shigeruki wonders if there's really a cat there. Suddenly, the little wolf growls and barks at the darkness, and Eureka is surprised by its reaction. The protagonist then clarifies that it's not a cat, but the boss of the next dungeon floor. The system warns that the temperature is -10 degrees and will drop 2 degrees every minute. With that, the hero says it's time to find the little wolf's impatient old friend. In the dark hallway, they find several cold spirits that look like frozen zombies. Tokiya then takes the first step, and the group moves forward to the next challenge. With a serious expression, they prepare to face the horde of monsters ahead. The cold spirits then turn the group, ready to attack. Eureka notes that the number of monsters has increased, and Tokiya explains they get stronger near the boss. The monsters then roar and charge at full force towards the group of players, but the protagonist just faces them with a confident smile on his face. He just dodges with ease and says it's now Shigeruki's time to shine. With that, he positions himself and begins to prepare his attack, and then he unleashes a powerful energy blow towards the monsters. He tells Tokiya to rest and focus on the boss, as he will take care of the monsters. With a smile, the hero thinks that excellent players like Shigeruki only get stronger. With that, the man in glasses charges forward with everything, landing several blows on the cold spirits. He tells the other two to follow him as he clears a path through the frozen corridor. Eureka is impressed by Shigeruki's strength, saying he's amazing. Tokiya then asks him if he knows where the floor boss is. A bit sheepishly, Shigeruki admits he has no idea where the boss is. Suddenly, two monsters appear from the ceiling and charge to attack Shigeruki, and Eureka warns him be careful and turn around. Shigeruki turns in shock at her warning and sees the monsters approaching. He realizes the monsters are too close and that he won't be able to defend himself in time. At that moment, he hears Tokiya's voice yelling for him to get down immediately. A beam of red energy passes over him and hits the two cold spirits. With a single powerful attack, the protagonist defeats both monsters at once. Eureka comments that no matter how many times she sees the hero's powers, he always surprises her. Shigeruki admits the protagonist is incredibly strong and looks at him with respect. With that, Tokiya says he knows where the boss is and invites the others to come with him. As they advance, more cold spirits appear but are easily defeated. He then points to a room at the end of the hallway and says the boss is in there. Upon entering, they find a huge white cat with glowing orange eyes. With a powerful Mio, the creature faces the group with a fierce and threatening gaze. Eureka finds the giant cat cute, but Shigeruki questions her definition of cuteness. The protagonist notes the boss's agility is high and that not even he can beat it with speed. With that, he thinks they need to use another method to defeat the powerful floor boss. He then asks to borrow the little wolf, and the young woman hands it over without hesitation. Tokia explains that the wolf bark causes a debuff on its former partner, and this is a secret rule. He then tells the others to take care of the monsters while he deals with the giant boss. Eureka and Shigeruki agree and prepare to fight the cold spirits. Shigeruki notices that Eureka isn't scared, but she also doesn't have much combat experience. Without wasting another second, the protagonist charges forward with the little wolf in his arms for the battle. The boss then starts to meow, and the cold spirits advance to attack the protagonist. The protagonist then grabs his sword and prepares to attack, telling them not to get in his way, and then he cuts through the monsters with ease, clearing a path to the boss. Next, he prepares to jump, and with a leap, he advances towards the boss. The monster lets out a powerful meow and prepares to attack the protagonist, and it tries to attack with its sharp claws. Tokia then throws the wolf as if it were a Pokemon and tells it to bark and activate its special ability. The little wolf then lets out a powerful bark. The bark creates a shockwave that hits the giant cat, leaving it stunned in mid-air. The system informs that the boss felt its companion's voice and its stats have decreased. With the monster's guard wide open, the hero says now is the time to strike. With that, he delivers a powerful slash to the cat and leaves it with just 1% of its health, just as he had done with the wolf. The protagonist says the problem is solved and that now it's time for the next step. He then invites the giant cat to join them and find its master. The creature glares at the young man with anger, but its little friend appears to calm it down and barks at its old partner, inviting it to join the group. The giant cat then gives in and sends a team request, and the hero accepts it without a second thought. A notification confirms the boss's defeat, and after that he receives several attribute cards and an incomplete enhancement core item card. Tokia is pleased with the reward as he can now enhance a skill of his sword. Without wasting time, he activates the attribute cards and boosts his strength and agility stats. With both bosses recruited, the system informs that the entire team will receive a special 50% bonus. Eureka and Shigeruki are excited about the bonus and the increase in the final reward. At that moment, the passage to the next floor opens and Shigeruki confirms it's time. With that, the group advances to the next stage to face the final boss of the dungeon. The protagonist then gets excited and prepares to face the first boss that cannot be defeated normally. Eureka complains about the cold, saying the place looks like an ice cave and that normal people would suffer there. The protagonist then decides to use the enhancement core on his sword to strengthen it. With that, he activates the enhancement card, which glows brightly in his hand. A blue aura envelopes his sword, and the system begins the enhancement process. The system screen displays the sword's details, revealing it gains a skill every 10 levels. Tokia realizes that when he reached level 10, his sword gained a second skill, and he forgot about it. The system then informs that the enhancement was successful, and the sword is stronger. The sky slicing slash skill now increases his strength by 2 levels when activated. With a satisfied smile, the young man realizes he can still draw a skill for his sword. He then presses the draw button on the blue system screen to see his new skill. With that, the hero is transported to a virtual space for the new skill draw. He explains that only he can see the illusion and that the colors of the cards represent their rarities. With a determined look, he prepares to choose the second exclusive skill for his sword. The protagonist then chooses the purple card, hoping it will be a powerful skill for battle. A system notification then confirms that the skill draw was a success. The new skill, Rushing Wind, increases his agility by 5 levels when he uses the sword. With a satisfied smile, the hero says that a simple and direct agility bonus is very useful. The system then displays the stats of the cold spirits that are on the final floor of the dungeon. Eureka notices that the number of monsters has increased and says she wants to fight too. And Shigeruki thinks that with the protagonist there, the monsters will be defeated instantly. Tokia then tells them to take care of the monsters, while he goes ahead to face the boss. Shigeruki just sighs, saying the protagonist always ends up facing the bosses alone. With that, the protagonist says the goal is just to lure the boss and asks his friends to level up. Eureka is a little sad to see him leave and leave them alone. Suddenly, a cold spirit charges full speed towards Eureka, and Shigeruki yells for her to get out of there. But she lands a punch right in the creature's face. The punch was so strong that she sent the cold spirit flying. Furious that the protagonist left her behind, she decides to take it all out on the poor monsters and challenges them to combat. She reveals that she has also improved and is ready to fight with everything she has. With that, the young woman charges at the monsters with all her might, showing off her new strength. Shigeruki thinks the girl only reveals her true strength when the protagonist isn't around. One of the monsters charges to attack him from behind, but he manages to defend against the monster's attack with ease, and then he says he also needs to get serious and prepares to fight. The cold spirits then advance in a horde towards him, and they were thirsty for blood. Meanwhile, the protagonist finds several skulls scattered on the frozen floor. The final floor boss appears, revealing herself as a woman with long white hair and black eyes. With empty eyes, the monster stares at the young man who prepares for the final battle. The creature then reveals itself as a woman with bizarre eyes, horns, and a sinister expression. Tokia knows that the two little companions, Cries, have a 50% chance of awakening her memories. With a sinister smile, the woman says that living humans have arrived and that their blood is sweet. With that, the creature charges full speed at the protagonist, screaming that she wants blood. The hero then shouts for his companions to use their skill and awaken her memories. The system then informs that the attempt to awaken the woman's memories has failed. The creature then attacks with full force, delivering a powerful attack on the protagonist. Tokia tells his companions it's not their fault, as he never expected it to work. The monster then charges, screaming for blood, and the protagonist starts running. He thinks he needs to buy time for his friends and that with his new agility, he can dodge. Meanwhile, Eureka and Shigeruki defeat all the cold spirits in the area. The man in glasses is now level 11, and with his family bonus, his stats are even higher. Eureka has also leveled up to 9 and comments that the improvement the monsters bring is huge. Suddenly, they hear a hammering sound and wonder if the protagonist is bringing the boss. The young woman gets excited about the hero's return, and Shigeruki notes her change in behavior. With a leap, the protagonist appears in the hallway, fleeing from the dungeon's final boss. Eureka is happy to see him and calls his name with a radiant smile on her face. The monster then appears right behind, chasing the protagonist. They are impressed by the boss's size, and Shigeruki identifies her as the final monster. With a determined look, the protagonist tells them to go back the way they came and head to the upper floor.